Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward, and this is Face to Face. This week, we're taking a look back to some of our favorite moments from Season 10 of Face to Face. We had 27 guests on the show this year, actors, directors, lawyers, photographers, and even a sitting premier. Shortly after kicking off Season 10, rallies were held across the country calling for Winnipeg area landfills to be searched. One of those organizers was longtime MMIWG advocate Bridget Tolley.
We've been on the Hill since 2006. We're now in 2023, and the federal government is still failing Indigenous women and girls. You know, it's not up to us. We did everything we can. It's up to them to do right, you know. And this hurts a lot of families. Every time something happens, it's very triggering to a lot of families, because all the families get, you know, comes back, either it's a police report or anything like that. So it's they have to be accountable.
Well, you're going to be back on the Hill next week, which will be a few weeks after or before this will actually air on television. But you know, Families of Sisters in Spirit is hosting a rally on the very first day that Parliament returns, September 18th, calling, you know, to support or to search the landfills near Winnipeg. Why is this for you here an important thing to support?
Well, first of all, it's a human rights issue. You know, any human being doesn't belong in a landfill as their last resting place. You know, we're all human beings. We all get treated the same way, no matter what color you are. No person deserves to be in a landfill as their last resting place. And it hurts my heart, because I've been, you know, doing this for 20 years, trying to get accountability. And these families have been outside winter, summer, you know, trying to get their loved ones out of the landfill. You know, this is so unbelievable. I can't believe this is happening. And, you know, what I don't like about this is they're making it a political issue too in Manitoba. The NDP says, well, we'll search, and the other ones don't want to search. So this is hard to, you know, like, we're not political, we're human beings. You know, we shouldn't, it's not a political issue whether we search or not. You know, it should be we're searching and that's it. We're going to bring home anybody whoever's in a landfill. You know, so it doesn't matter who it is or which landfill. You know, they need to be found. We have the technology to do it. We have dogs to do it. I would have done it a long time ago. And if Canada doesn't want to do it, it looks like we might have to go do it ourselves, you know. And I know we can do it. We just need to find the right people.
Months later, a search of the landfill had still not begun, and no funding for a search was in place when we sat down with another longtime MMIWG advocate, Sandra Delaron. As mentioned, you're a long-time advocate for MMIWG, the families. Winnipeg and Manitoba is often referred to as ground zero for this crisis. Is that something that you would agree with?
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that the stats across the country show that Winnipeg and Manitoba continues to be ground zero.
Well, what do you think is behind those high rates in Winnipeg and Manitoba?
I think there's a lack of genuine systemic response to the issues around safety and well-being of Indigenous women and girls and gender diverse people. Prime example is the landfill and the failure to search, the ongoing failure to search the landfill, leading to at least 3 women being found in dumpsters in the past year. So that becomes a place where perpetrators feel that it's safe to get rid of their victim because no one's going to search.
Right. You know, we're a year on from when it was announced that the likelihood that these women were in the landfill. Are you shocked that we've still not even started searching?
I'm shocked. I feel for the families that, you know, that we spent time with them in the fall as they were going through the pre-trial motions, that that nothing has been done as yet, and then they're going to be going into the trial with their loved ones probably still in the landfill.
In late March of 2024, the Manitoba government and the federal government each committed $20 million towards the search at the Prairie Green landfill. The search has yet to begin. Meanwhile, a show that for years took a deeper look into the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples may be set to return, as longtime producer Lisa Meaches recently told us on Face to Face.
You know, Dennis, I always found myself arm's length from the missing and murdered families and arm's length from the issue itself. And something traumatic happened to me with my late sister. She was taken one time and we found her. And then when I found out that I was having a daughter, I was pregnant with a daughter, I went back to that day. And I went back to when I was a young woman finding my way in this city. And I became scared, I became frightened for her, even though she wasn't even born yet. And so I called up my business partners and I was like having these worries and I was crying and I said, how can we save her life before she's born? I don't know what to do. And I said, all I know is that this place isn't safe for our women and our girls anymore. And then we came up with this idea of, you know, of how to, like other missing and murdered shows and the genre itself, and we really dove into it. We had no development money, just a fear for Stevie. And then, boom, the money just lined itself up like it was meant to be. And we shot the first show. I was breastfeeding already a week, and we shot the first show. And I was breastfeeding on set, and I would hand her off to my husband, and I knew that we were doing the right thing. So the show was designed out of fear for my daughter. She's going to be 11 next week, and not much has changed in terms of safety for our women in city centers. But we're becoming more proactive and working with the families and taking suggestions from them and how change can happen. And you're seeing the results of those discussions. And so whether it was because of Taken or the families coming together and trusting us to share their testimonies, because I wanted to know what these women were doing the last time anyone saw them walking, talking, living, breathing, laughing. And we needed to reenact that so their families could have that. But in the beginning of the show, we fall in love with them as babies. We get to meet them as babies, as young children growing up in their home communities. And then we find out quickly what happens to them, in hopes that somehow, some way, someone will wake up and remember, you know, what happened to our women, what happened in the last series. It was both men and women and boys and girls. And, you know, and I really, really believe that Taken has done what it's meant to do, and there's hopes and renewing it. And so we're talking about it, we're in discussions now. But I really believe that my girl really woke me up inside and put me in the place of all of those other families.
We have much more here on Face to Face as we continue our look back at some of our favorite moments from Season 10 after the break. Welcome back to Face to Face. This week we're taking a look back at some of our favorite moments from this past season, season 10 of the show. It was a great year for Indigenous peoples on the screen, from limited series like Little Bird and Echo to feature films like Hey Victor and Cold Road. Here is some of what those involved in the projects had to say on Face to Face.
So it's really difficult often to promote Canadian movies, in this country. But what this film did is it blew everybody's expectations. So normally, if movies will play they might play Toronto or Vancouver for a week, then they'll kind of vanish. Whereas Cold Road started playing in like Yellowknife, in Hay River, in Red Deer, in Lethbridge, and then it did well, and then word spread, and then it started playing all of these theaters everywhere else. So it would play like North Battleford, Saskatchewan, or like Wetaskiwin, and Cold Road was beating Hollywood movies at these little theaters all over the country. And I think the reason is because it's like all of us as rural Indigenous Northern folks are like, oh my God, we haven't seen movies like this with us. And so they would show up, and we sold out like North Battleford 4 nights in a row when the movie came out, or like High Prairie or all these places. And the movie, I think it's surpassed something like 75 or 80% of all Canadian movies at the box office. And I think it's partly just because of that audience excitement over what this movie is. As of right now, everybody watching can go online and you can find Cold Road to rent or to purchase on Apple TV, on iTunes, on Amazon, on YouTube, all the cable providers. And I really hope that people do, because the only way that you get more Indigenous cinema, the only way we get more Cold Roads is that if they are financially successful. And I think, wouldn't it be great if we lived in a world where there was 3 or 4 or 5 Indigenous movies that came out every year that you could go see in theaters that reflected who we are? And that just isn't the case. And the only way to get there is if everybody watching right now goes and rents Cold Road for $5. That's all it costs. Or to, you can buy it for $10. Watch it, tell your friends about it. We need tens of thousands of people, or like, if not hundreds of thousands of people, to prove that these types of movies should get made more. And that's our goal, with this movie. And so hopefully everybody can can I get on board with that? Yeah, what, right now, you can just pull out your phone, pull up iTunes and pay $5 for Cold Road. And that's the path to getting more of those. And hopefully people really like the movie as well too. So, you can tell your friends, you can let people know hey, this is a movie worth watching. This is worth your $5. And yeah, if 100,000 people rent this movie or buy it, that's how we get more of these. That's how you tell more stories with, Indigenous leads and from the North and that kind of thing. And so I really desperately just want so many people to get on board with hey, yeah, you know what? Let's have more of these.
Well, on that theme, like we said, you've been in the industry about 20 years almost now. This is your first feature film. Was that by design or just changes in the industry itself?
If I had the choice, I would have been making movies 10, 15 years ago. But they're expensive, Yeah. It takes a Herculean effort to get these off the ground. And even this one I've been working on for, I think, 4, maybe 5 years in order to get it going. And if you just think about some of the other amazing movies that have come out, like from other Indigenous filmmakers, like Dan Escoulet or the Marie Clements, it takes all of us 3, 4, 5, maybe more years to get to making one of these. And I've been in rooms with industry distributors, with people who make movies, and they'll just look me in the eye and say, movies like this aren't successful, or that Indigenous stories aren't financially viable, so we aren't going to make your movie. And it's frustrating. And I think that we would all like to get past that. And the only way is to actually move the needle of people, lots of people watching them and making these movies, successful.
So when you're dealing with Indigenous content, that's a niche market, right? In the broad spectrum of what's out there, it's a niche market. And so in reality, not a lot of people get to see our films. And for investors, people that want to put money into projects in hopes of getting a return, it's tough. It's really tough. So as a creator and a filmmaker myself, what do you want to, you know, what are you willing, where are you willing to bend? Where are you willing to adapt, but still keep your core roots of what's true to you in your projects to put out there? You could make a film that's beautiful and amazing and you break even. You could make a film that's very informative and awesome that doesn't do well. You could make something silly, wild, and crazy that's blowing up. And you never know. It's always a gamble. And for us to, for my project, have this, it's very personal to the Indigenous community and to my friends and my family and those who have worked on smoke signals. But like, it's very niche. And so it's tough to get investors to want to hop on board with that. And I do understand, because in this world, it's about money. Like, oh, if I give you this money, what am I going to get back? Like, what's in it for me? You get a lot. And it's unfortunate. Like, there's what I call safety projects, which are catered to investors. I don't think in that box. I think outside that. And unfortunately, if you think outside that box, a lot of times you won't get your funding to make your project. And there are so many gems, so many beautiful pieces that should be made that aren't, because funders, they don't get anything back from that. And it's all a money thing. And it's really unfortunate, because there's so many beautiful, raw, edgy, envelope pushing projects that should and could and be made that aren't. And hopefully with my project, Hey Victor, and others that I'm going to create, and like the late Jeff Barnaby was on the road to that, and so many other filmmakers, let's keep pushing the boundary. Let's make people feel uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, you know? Everything can't all just be one thing.
Well, honestly, it just happened, I feel like, through the amazing work of the universe. Because I randomly got an email one day from a casting agent asking me to audition for the role. And as we talked about, I was actually considering leaving the business, and I told myself that this was the last audition I was ever going to do, and I was going to leave it all behind. I was going to put the career to bed. I was done. And they kept asking me for more auditions, but they were waiting like 3 to 10 weeks between letting me know that I actually had another audition. So every time it happened, I was like, okay, I didn't get it, whatever. And I kept getting more auditions, and then eventually I got a call from Jennifer Podemski at like 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, oh my God, she's calling me. Jennifer Podemski's calling me on the phone right now. And she told me I got the role, and I cried. I didn't really know how to process that moment, but it was magical, and that's how I came to be a part of it. And later learned that Devry Jacobs, one of the stars of Reservation Dogs, actually recommended me for the role, because we have been friends since, I don't know, 2013 or 2015, I don't remember.
Nice. Devry's been on the show here. Good friend of the show, we'll say. Yeah, if you get a call from Jennifer Podemski about a role, you probably put aside your plans to be a bus driver, I guess.
Exactly.
What was it like? Jen Podemski's done a lot of productions, both in front, behind the cameras. You worked with some of the biggest names, past and present, on this production: Almaya Tailfeathers, Michelle Thrush, Eric Schweig. What was that experience like, going into a production like this with names like that?
It was honestly really jarring, because they were talking to me as if I was one of their friends, and I was like in shock the whole time.
Do you have any advice for deaf actors or writers, people trying to be part of the film and television industry?
I think just if you have a dream, whatever that dream may be, or any passion or hunger for something, pursue it. You know, whether access is in place or not, try to figure out how to make it accessible. Make the dream happen, right? And find the people or create the place, the space that the barriers can be broken down so that, you know, they know that you also have a right to be in this space and you're not afraid to kind of fight for the things that you want to achieve.
Time to step aside for one more break, but stick around as we continue our look back at some of our favorite moments of Season 10 of Face to Face. Welcome back to Face to Face as we continue our look back at some of our favorite moments from Season 10. We've had a number of political leaders on the show over the years, but having the first Anishinaabe premier of a province in Canada was obviously a new one. Here's part of our face-to-face conversation with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew. Like you said, you kicked the tires a couple of times. Was there a moment when you knew that, you're ready to put your name forward for politics?
I think that the death of Tina Fontaine was a big moment for me personally, because I was working at the University of Winnipeg at the time, and there was a site that we ran there called Witchuwaganuk Learning Center. Did great things for kids in the inner city, Anishinaabe language, Cree language, math camps in the summertime, bringing young people from the neighborhood into the university environment, sports and recreation opportunities. And so we felt really good about what we were doing. But very tragically, the back of our building is one of the last places Tina Fontaine was seen alive. Right. And we didn't know it at the time, but in the aftermath, we saw her on the security camera within a short while before she went missing. And as all of that came clear, and we were, I think, organizing the march and vigil that followed, you know, I just asked myself, I'm somebody who's got a ton of opportunity, you know, I'm very lucky in my life. Am I doing everything that I can to prevent something like that from happening? And the answer was no. I could probably do more. And then around the same time, you know, my dad had passed away. Cancer, healthcare, a big factor in his final year. And I saw like heroic efforts being made by the palliative care, the cancer care people who are taking care of him. And I thought, these people are doing awesome work. I want to make a difference. You know, my spouse is in medicine and she's a healthcare hero. Am I giving it my all in terms of this other area that I'm super passionate about, which is healthcare? And again, the answer was no, I could be doing more. So it's kind of a few factors converging and coming together. And but I think the fundamental thing is I feel very lucky in my life to have the opportunities that I do. And so I want to be able to contribute in the public sphere to try and make things better for other people in Manitoba and Canada.
That is all the time we have for the show this week and this season. You can always catch up on any episodes from the past 10 seasons by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca, or by visiting our APTN News page on YouTube. This show and past episodes are also available as podcasts. You can find those wherever you download your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in to Face to Face. I'm Dennis Ward. We'll see you back here as we kick off Season 11 in October.